Taiyang wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished reconnecting the power cells in the embassy's west wing. 5 years had passed since aliens first came to Earth, and he still couldn't believe he worked here. The Galactic Coalition Embassy stood like a crystal tower in the middle of Seoul, filled with technology that seemed like magic to most humans. He was just an engineer. Nothing special. Every day he fixed things, calibrated machines he barely understood, and tried not to embarrass humanity in front of species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Most aliens barely noticed him. To them, humans were primitives who had just learned to leave their own planet. "Hey, you still here?" Ji-woo poked his head around the corner. His best friend carried 2 cups of coffee, steam rising in the cool air of the corridor. "Man, you need to go home. You've been here for 14 hours. Taiyang accepted the coffee gratefully. I know. But the Velthran delegation arrives tomorrow, and Doyeon said everything needs to be perfect. Apparently, their princess is coming personally." Ji-woo whistled low. "Princess Araya herself? I heard she's like royalty times 1,000. Her family has ruled for longer than humans have had written language." "Great. No pressure then." Taiyang laughed tiredly. He had seen pictures of the Volthran. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin had a faint crystalline shimmer, and their eyes held colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The next morning, Taiyang stood in the maintenance bay as the Velthran ship landed. It made no sound, just settled onto the platform like a leaf falling on water. When Princess Araya emerged, everyone in the embassy seemed to hold their breath. She was tall, taller than any human woman, with silver hair that moved like liquid metal. Her dress seemed to be made of light itself, shifting colors with each step. But what struck Taiyang most were her eyes, cold, distant, like looking at a statue instead of a person. "Maintain proper distance," Doyeon whispered to the human staff. "Do not speak unless spoken to. And for God's sake, don't touch anything in her quarters without permission." Taiyang nodded. He had been assigned to maintain the technology in the princess's living area. It should have been an honor, but it felt more like a test he might fail at any moment. The first week was terrible. Princess Araya barely acknowledged his existence. When she did speak, her voice was formal and cold. She would point at a device and say, "This is malfunctioning," without even looking at him. Taiyang would fix it in silence and leave as quickly as possible. But during the second week, something changed. Taiyang was recalibrating her environmental controls when he noticed the system was set completely wrong. The temperature, the humidity, even the light spectrum were all configured for standard Velthran preferences. But they didn't match how the princess actually used the space. "Excuse me, Your Highness," he said carefully. "I noticed you keep manually adjusting the temperature down. I could reprogram the base settings so you don't have to keep doing that." For the first time, she actually looked at him. Really looked at him. "You noticed that?" "Well, yes. The system logs show you adjust it every morning and evening. It seems uncomfortable." Something flickered in her crystalline eyes. "The standard Velthran settings are traditional. I am expected to maintain tradition. But you're the only one living here," Taiyang said before he could stop himself. "Shouldn't you be comfortable in your own room?" A long silence filled the space between them. Then, incredibly, the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. "Make the adjustments, Engineer Kim." After that, their interactions changed. She started asking him questions about Earth, about human culture, about his work. He learned that beneath the cold royal exterior was someone curious and surprisingly kind. She had a sharp sense of humor that caught him off guard. One evening, she found him struggling with a Velthran data interface. "You're approaching it wrong," she said, not unkindly. Human logic is linear. Velthran systems think in patterns. Look for the harmony, not the sequence. She showed him, her hand briefly touching his as she guided his movements on the holographic display. Something warm rushed through Taiyang's chest. He pushed it down quickly. She was a princess from a civilization millions of years old. He was just a human engineer. But over the following weeks, he couldn't help but notice things. The way she smiled when he brought her tea, the way she mentioned she liked it, the way she asked about his day, genuinely interested in his answers, the way she seemed more relaxed around him than around her own diplomatic staff. 3 months into her stay, Taiyang found himself working a double shift. The embassy's main power grid had glitched, and he had spent 16 hours straight fixing it. He was exhausted, running on coffee and determination. Jiwoo met him in the break room at midnight. "You look dead, man." "Go home." "Can't. Still have to check the princess's quarters. If something fails during the night, it'll be my fault." "You care too much about this job," Jiwoo said, but his smile was fond. "Or maybe you care about something else?" "Shut up." But Taiyang felt his face heat. "It's not like that." Sure. You just happened to volunteer for every assignment related to her wing of the embassy. Totally normal." Taiyang slumped in his chair. The exhaustion made his filter disappear. "I mean, is it so wrong? She's amazing, Jiwoo. She's brilliant and kind, and she actually listens when I talk. She doesn't treat me like I'm primitive or stupid. I wish." He paused, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I wish I could marry someone like her. Someone who sees me as an actual person, you know? She's incredible. Okay, Romeo, let's get you home before you compose poetry." Jiwoo pulled him to his feet. What neither of them knew was the princess. Araya was walking past the break room at that exact moment. Her telepathic abilities, natural to all Velthran, picked up the emotions behind Taiyang's words. Not the words themselves, but the feeling, pure, genuine, without any political calculation or hidden agenda. In her world of arranged marriages and diplomatic games, such authentic emotion was rarer than diamonds. And according to Velthran tradition, a proposal spoken from pure feeling, even unconsciously, was the most sacred kind. The next morning, Taiyang received a formal summons to the princess's private chambers. His hand shook as he entered. Had he done something wrong? Princess Araya stood by the window, her back to him. "Engineer Kim, last night you expressed a desire to marry someone like me." Taiyang's blood turned to ice. "Oh, no. Your Highness, I didn't mean to. I was exhausted," and she turned to face him, and her expression was serious. In Velthran culture, a proposal born from genuine emotion is considered the highest form of proposal. It cannot be political. It cannot be calculated. It simply is. "I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to offend. I accept." The world stopped. Taiyang stared at her, certain he had misheard. "You... what?" "I accept your proposal, Taiyang Kim. We are now betrothed according to the laws of my people. But I didn't actually propose. I was just talking to my friend. Your emotions were genuine. Your desire was pure. That is all that matters in Velthran tradition." She stepped closer, and he could see something in her eyes that looked almost like hope. "Unless you wish to refuse? Though I should warn you, refusing an accepted Velthran proposal is considered a grave insult. It could damage Earth's relationship with my empire." Taiyang's mind raced. This was insane. This was impossible. He was just a regular guy who fixed machines. She was royalty from a species that considered humans barely civilized. But when he looked at her, really looked at her, he saw past the princess to the woman he had come to know over 3 months. The one who laughed at his jokes. The one who asked about his family. The one who seemed just as lonely as he sometimes felt. I don't understand, he whispered. Why would you accept? Her voice was soft when she answered. Because in 3 months, you are the only person who has ever seen me as Araya instead of just the princess. And that is worth more than you know. Taiyang took a deep breath. His whole life was about to change, and he had no idea if he was ready. But looking at her, he found himself saying, "Then I don't refuse." Her smile was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Good. Now we must inform the embassy. And the galaxy? The galaxy? Taiyang's voice cracked. Of course. This will be the first human Velthran royal marriage in history. It will cause quite a stir. Taiyang realized he had just accidentally changed the fate of his entire species. All because he told his friend he wished he could marry someone like her. The universe, he thought distantly, had a strange sense of humor. The news hit the galactic networks within hours. A human, a species barely 5 years into space travel, was engaged to marry Princess Araya of the Velthran Empire. The response was immediate and loud. Taey and G sat in Ambassador Hyeji's office, watching news feeds from a dozen different worlds. None of it was good. Alien commentators called it a scandal. Some called it an insult to Velthran tradition. A few called it proof that the princess had lost her mind. This is a disaster, Doyen muttered, pacing back and forth. Do you understand what you've done? The Kaurath Consortium is threatening to pull their trade agreements. The Vexian lords are demanding an explanation. Half the galaxy thinks Earth somehow tricked the princess. I didn't trick anyone. Taiyang protested. I didn't even know she could hear me. Ambassador Hyeji held up her hand for silence. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but everyone in the room shut up immediately. What's done is done. The question is how we move forward. She looked at Taiyang with sharp eyes. Are you absolutely certain about this? You can still refuse. We'll deal with the political fallout. Taiyang thought about Araya's smile, about the hope in her eyes, about 3 months of slowly getting to know someone who treated him like an equal. I'm certain, even knowing it might destroy your entire life. Even then, Yeji nodded slowly. Then we fight for this. But understand, boy, you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for Earth's reputation, for humanity's place in the galaxy. The weight of it crashed down on Taiyang. He was just an engineer. He fixed machines. He wasn't supposed to be important enough to affect his entire species' future. Across the embassy, Princess Araya faced her own battle. She stood in her quarters, her mother's holographic form projected before her. Empress Nalith of the Velthran Empire, ruler of 1,000 worlds, looked at her daughter with an expression carved from ice. Explain yourself. Araya kept her spine straight, her voice steady. I accepted a genuine proposal according to our traditions. There is nothing to explain. From a human, the Empress said, making the words sound like an insult. A primitive who has been in space for barely a moment. Our bloodline goes back millions of years, Araya. You would dilute it with a species that still fights wars over pieces of dirt? He is a good man, Mother. Kind and intelligent, and I do not care if he is the most brilliant human ever born. He is still human. The court is in an uproar. Commander Boran has threatened to resign. Lord Dexian of the Sindari Empire, your intended match, is demanding satisfaction for the insult. Araya felt her temper flare. Lord Dexian was never my intended match. That was your arrangement, not mine. I never agreed to marry a man who collects wives like art pieces. This is not about your personal feelings, daughter. You are the crown princess. Your marriage is a matter of state. And yet Velthran law is clear. A proposal born from genuine emotion, once accepted, cannot be annulled by anyone except the two people involved. Not even by the Empress herself. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Empress Nelith's expression shifted into something calculating. Very well. If you insist on this path, then the human must prove himself worthy. One invoked the trial of worth. Araya felt her stomach drop. Mother, no. The trials are designed to be nearly impossible, even for Velthran warriors. A human cannot. Then he will fail, and this embarrassment will end. If he truly cares for you, he will accept the challenge. If he refuses, the engagement ends and Earth loses face, not us. Either way, this situation resolves itself. The hologram disappeared, leaving Araya alone in the dark. She had known her mother would react badly, but the trial of worth? It was a cruel solution. The trials tested combat skill, wisdom, and emotional depth. They were hard enough for Velthran nobles who had trained their entire lives. For a human with no preparation? She found Taiyang in the embassy gardens an hour later. He was sitting on a bench, staring at nothing. When he saw her, he tried to smile, but it came out weak. "I'm guessing you heard," she said, sitting beside him. "Ambassador Hyeji told me. 3 trials. Combat, wisdom, and heart. If I fail any of them, the engagement ends and Earth gets humiliated in front of the galaxy." He laughed without humor. "No pressure. You don't have to do this, Taiyang. I can refuse the trials on your behalf. It would end the engagement, but it would be my choice, not yours. Earth's reputation would remain intact." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "And what happens to you?" "I return home. Eventually marry whoever my mother chooses. Continue being the perfect princess." Her voice was flat, emotionless. She had practiced that tone for centuries. "That sounds terrible. It is my duty." "Duty." Taiyang stood up, started pacing. "Everyone keeps talking about duty and politics and species reputation. But what about what we want? What about the fact that I actually like you? That you make me laugh? That when I'm around you, I don't feel like just another primitive human?" Araya felt something warm bloom in her chest. "You really mean that?" "Of course I mean that. I meant it when I said I wanted to marry someone like you. Except..." He stopped, turned to face her. "Except I don't want to marry someone like you. I want to marry you, Araya. Not the princess. Not the political symbol. You." She stood, closing the distance between them. "My people measure relationships in centuries, Taiyang. We have known each other for only 3 months. By Velthran standards, we barely know each other. Then maybe Velthran standards are wrong." He said it simply, like it was obvious. 3 months of real conversation is worth more than centuries of formal dinners and political games, isn't it? She couldn't help but laugh. "You sound very certain for someone who might die in combat in 3 days. I'm not going to die. I'm going to pass these trials." He grinned, and it was braver than he felt. "I mean, how hard can they be?" The next day, the entire galaxy learned about the trial of worth. Millions of beings tuned in to watch. Most wanted to see the human fail. Some wanted to see him humiliated. A very few wondered if maybe, just maybe, he might surprise them in a training room deep in the embassy. Taiyang met his preparation team. Soman, a human soldier who had served in Earth's first space defense force, looked him up and down with a critical eye. "You ever been in a real fight?" she asked. "Does a bar argument count?" "No." "Great. I have 3 days to teach you not to die. This is going to be fun." Quan, a xenobiologist with thick glasses and nervous hands, shuffled through datapads. The Velthran combat constructs are designed to adapt to their opponent's fighting style. You can't beat one with strength or speed. You need to be smarter than it. I'm an engineer, not a fighter. "Good," Quan said, looking up with sudden intensity. "Then think like an engineer. What do you do when a machine doesn't work the way you want?" Taiyang blinked. "I reprogram it?" "Exactly." Across the galaxy, in a military station orbiting a red giant, Commander Boron watched the news feeds with disgust. A human. The princes had chosen a human. It was an insult to everything the Velthran stood for. The trials will end this farce, his aide said confidently. No human has the ability to pass all 3 challenges. But Boron wasn't so sure. He had studied humans since first contact. They were weak individually, yes. Their technology was primitive. Their lifespans were laughably short. But they had something that older species had lost. They were unpredictable, desperate, willing to try things that no sane being would attempt. It made them dangerous in unexpected ways. On the Sindari homeworld, Lord Dexian threw a crystal glass against the wall. He had been courting Princess Araya for decades, following every rule of proper courtship. And she chose a human she had known for 3 months? I want information on this Taiyang Kim, he told his intelligence officers. Everything. His history, his family, his weaknesses. If the trials don't eliminate him, I will find another way. Back on Earth, Taiyang trained until his body screamed. Somin was merciless, teaching him how to move, how to think in combat. Quan fed him information about Velthran technology until his brain felt ready to explode. On the 3rd night, Araya found him in the training room, long after everyone else had left. He was running combat simulations, losing every single one. You should rest, she said softly. I can't. Every simulation ends with me dead in under a minute. How am I supposed to win the real thing? She sat beside him on the floor. By not fighting the way they expect you to. The trials are designed for Velthran warriors who have trained for centuries in traditional combat. You are not Velthran. Use that. Use being weaker and slower and less experienced. Use being human. She took his hand, her skin cool against his. You humans see problems differently. You find solutions that we would never consider because we're trapped by millions of years of tradition. That's what makes you special, Taiyang. Not your strength. Your perspective. He looked at their joined hands. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But don't let it control you. She squeezed his hand gently. I believe in you. I wouldn't have accepted your proposal if I didn't think you could stand beside me. Even if I fail? Even then. But you won't fail. You're too stubborn. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Is that what you like about me? My stubbornness? Among other things. Her smile was soft, genuine. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow you show the galaxy what humans are capable of. As Taiyang finally left for his quarters, Araya stayed in the training room. She pulled up the combat simulation. The arena was massive, built specifically for the trials. Taiyang stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing millions of viewers from across the galaxy. Every major species had tuned in. Most wanted to watch him fail. Ambassador Hyeji stood in the observation deck with the other Earth representatives. How is he doing? Jiwoo asked nervously. He's terrified but hiding it well, Hyeji said. She had seen the betting pools. Most of the galaxy had him dead within 90 seconds of the first trial. Empress Nelith's hologram peered above the arena. Taiyang Kim of Earth, you stand before the trial of worth. 3 challenges await you. Combat, to prove you can protect. Wisdom, to prove you can provide. Heart, to prove you can truly love. Succeed in all 3, and you may claim my daughter's hand. Fail in any, and the engagement ends. Do you accept these terms? Taiyang's voice was steady when he answered. I accept. Then let the first trial begin. The arena floor shifted, reconfiguring into a combat zone. From the far side, something emerged from the shadows. The Velthran war construct stood 12 feet tall, made of flowing metal that constantly rearranged itself. It had been designed thousands of years ago to fight Velthran warriors. Against a human, it would be like a tank versus a house cat. The construct charged. Taiyang dove to the side, barely avoiding being crushed. The construct moved faster than anything that size should move. It spun, its arm extending into a blade, slicing through the air where Taiyang had been a second earlier dot in the observation deck. Soman gripped the railing. He's just surviving. He needs to attack. But Taiyang wasn't trying to attack. He was watching. Every time the construct moved, patterns of energy flowed through its body. It was a machine, incredibly advanced, but still a machine. And Taiyang understood machines. He rolled behind the barrier as the construct smashed through it like paper. His hand touched the arena floor, and he felt it. The entire combat zone was connected to the construct, feeding it data, helping it adapt. But that meant there was a network. And networks could be accessed. The construct's blade came down. Taiyang pressed his palm flat against the floor, and his engineering implant, the basic neural interface all embassy technicians had, connected to the arena systems. He didn't try to shut the construct down. That would be impossible. Instead, he fed it false information. The construct suddenly stopped mid-attack, its sensors telling it that Taiyang was behind it. It spun around, attacking empty air. Taiyang sprinted forward, sliding under the construct's legs, his hand touching its core as he passed. Now he had direct access. What is he doing? Commander Bourne leaned forward in shock. He's not fighting it. He's talking to it. Taiyang wasn't just talking to the construct. He was reprogramming it. Not completely. He didn't have time for that. But he found the combat protocols, the decision trees that governed how it fought. And he introduced a variable that had never existed before. Hesitation. Just a fraction of a second. A tiny delay between decision and action. But in combat, that fraction was everything. The construct swung its blade. Taiyang ducked under it with centimeters to spare. It tried to grab him. He was already gone. Every attack came just slightly too slow. The construct second-guessing itself, because its own code was now fighting against its programming. Taiyang grabbed a piece of broken barrier and jammed it into the construct's leg joint. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but the construct's weight shifted, trying to compensate. Taiyang shoved hard, pushing at exactly the right moment. The construct fell. Before it could rise, Taiyang stood on its chest, his hand pressed against its core. "Yield protocol accepted," he gasped. The construct went still, defeated not by strength, but by its own compromised programming. The arena was silent. Then, slowly, a sound started. Cheering. Not from everyone, not even from most. But humans across Earth were celebrating. And surprisingly, a few alien species were too. "Impossible," Empress Nelith whispered. But the proof was right there. Taeyang helped the construct stand up and actually bowed to it before walking away. Even in victory, he showed respect. Araya found herself smiling despite the situation. That was so like him. The second trial began immediately. Taiyang was led to a chamber filled with floating crystals, each one showing fragments of an ancient Velthran puzzle. It was called the Harmony of Ages, and it had remained unsolved for 3,000 years. The best Velthran minds had attempted it and failed. "You have 6 hours," the proctor announced. "Solve the puzzle or fail the trial." Quan had warned him about this. The puzzle was based on Velthran mathematical principles that were fundamentally different from human math. Where humans thought in numbers and sequences, Velthran thought in harmonies and resonances. Taiyang stared at the floating crystals. Each one showed symbols that meant nothing to him. He could feel panic rising. This was impossible. He wasn't a genius. He was just an engineer who fixed air conditioning and power cells. Then he remembered what Araya had taught him about Velthran systems. Look for the harmony, not the sequence. He stopped trying to read the symbols and instead just looked at them. Really looked. The crystals floated in a pattern. Not random. There was a rhythm to how they moved. Like music frozen in space. Taeyang had studied music as a kid. His mother had insisted. He hadn't thought about it in years, but now he hummed softly, matching the rhythm of the floating crystals. And suddenly, he saw it. The puzzle wasn't about mathematics at all. It was about relationship. Each symbol related to the others, not by numerical value, but by harmonic resonance. Velthrin mathematicians had been trying to solve it using more complex Velthrin mathematics. But the puzzle had been created before modern Velthrin mathematics existed. It was based on something simpler, something intuitive. Taeyang started moving crystals, not according to any formula, but by what felt right, by what sounded right in his head. He was essentially composing music with mathematical symbols. In the observation chamber, Empress Nalith leaned forward. "What is he doing?" "I believe," said Elder Cirrus, the ancient Velthrin scholar, "he is solving it by feeling rather than thinking." How remarkably primitive. And yet, the crystals suddenly aligned. A pulse of light shot through the chamber. The puzzle chimed, a sound like perfect harmony. Solve. Taeyang stood there, not quite believing it himself. He had solved a 3,000-year-old puzzle by accident, by not knowing enough to try the complicated approach. In the viewing area, Kwang was laughing and crying at the same time. He did it. That crazy guy actually did it. But Lord Dexian, watching from his private chamber, was not amused. The human had passed 2 trials. That should have been impossible. He activated his communicator, moved to the secondary plan. If he passes the 3rd trial, we interfere directly. My lord, that would be illegal. Against coalition law. I don't care. The Sundari do not accept humiliation from primitives. The 3rd trial began at sunset. This one was different. No combat, no puzzle. Taeyang was led to a simple room with a chair and a crystalline circlet. "The trial of heart," the proctor explained. "You will enter Princess Araya's memories, not as an observer, but as a participant. You must prove you understand who she truly is. Prove you see beyond the crown to the person beneath. Many have tried. All have failed. Most went mad from the attempt." "Comforting," Taeyang muttered. He sat down. The circlet was placed on his head. The world disappeared. Suddenly, Taeyang was standing in a grand hall. It was beautiful and cold. A young Arya, maybe the equivalent of 8 years old in human terms, stood perfectly still while tutors lectured her about duty and responsibility. She wasn't allowed to fidget, wasn't allowed to complain, wasn't allowed to be a child. The scene shifted. Teenage Arya, alone in her room, crying silently where no one could see. The weight of expectation crushing her. She had to be perfect. Always perfect. One mistake and she would disappoint billions. Another shift. Adult Arya at a diplomatic function, smiling graciously while inside she screamed with loneliness. Surrounded by people who saw only the princess, never the person. Taeyang moved through her memories like a ghost. He saw centuries of isolation, of duty placed above everything else, of a woman who had never been allowed to just exist without the weight of a crown on her head. In the final memory, he found young Arya sitting alone in a garden. She was crying, and no one came to comfort her. Everyone assumed princesses didn't need comfort. The trial demanded he do something, prove he understood. Most challengers tried grand gestures, tried to fix her pain, tried to show they could make everything better. Taeyang did none of those things. He simply sat down beside young Arya in the memory. He didn't speak, didn't offer advice, didn't promise to make it better. He just sat with her, a quiet presence that said she didn't have to be alone. The young Orion memory looked at him with wide eyes. You're not supposed to be here. I know. But you shouldn't have to cry alone. I'm a princess. I have to be strong. Being strong doesn't mean being alone. It's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to not be perfect. In the real world, watching through the telepathic monitors, Araya felt tears on her face. No one had ever said that to her. In centuries of life, no one had ever told her it was okay to be imperfect. The memory shifted one final time. Now, 3 weeks after Taiyang passed the trials, the galaxy was still buzzing with shock. A human had achieved what most considered impossible. Some species began to look at humanity with new respect. Others became even more hostile, seeing humans as a threat to the established order. Taiyang sat in a coalition briefing room, holding Araya's hand under the table while various alien representatives argued about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Being engaged to a princess meant attending a lot of boring meetings. Then everything changed. Admiral Quan burst into the room, his face pale. We have a situation. The Scarth Horde has launched attacks on the outer colonies. Multiple systems. They're burning everything in their path. The room erupted in chaos. The Scarth were raiders from beyond known space, violent and unpredictable. But they usually stuck to uninhabited systems. This was different. Which colonies? Empress Nalith demanded, her hologram appearing immediately. 7 systems so far, including 3 human settlements. Admiral Quan pulled up a star map. New Darwin, Haven Station, and Frontier 7. All 3 are cut off from coalition support. Taiyang felt his blood run cold. New Darwin? My brother Mingyu is stationed there. He's a pilot. Ambassador Hieji was already on her communicator. What's the coalition's response? The Hierarchy Council representative, a massive creature called a Vorthian, spoke with a voice like grinding stones. The council will dispatch defense fleets to protect core worlds. The outer colonies, unfortunately, are considered acceptable losses. Acceptable losses? Taiyang stood up so fast his chair fell over. There are 50,000 people on New Darwin alone. Human people. You're just going to abandon them? The Scorath fleet is too large. Defending primitive colonies would require resources needed to protect more important systems. The Vorthian said matter-of-factly, like it was simple mathematics. Important systems. You mean rich systems. Systems with political influence. Hieji's voice was ice. Systems that aren't human. Ambassador, please understand. I understand perfectly. Hieji cut him off. Once again, humanity is considered expendable. Araya stood beside Taiyang. Mother, we cannot abandon these people. The coalition has a duty. The coalition has many duties, daughter. We must prioritize. But Empress Nalith's expression was troubled. The Velthran fleet is needed to defend the core systems. I cannot spare ships for a rescue mission. I am sorry. Taiyang looked at the star map. 3 human colonies. Hundreds of thousands of lives. His brother. All written off as acceptable losses because humanity didn't have enough political power to matter. Then we saved them ourselves, he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Hieji shook her head. Taiyang, Earth's defense fleet is tiny. 20 ships, most of them retrofitted cargo vessels. Against a Scorath horde, they'd last minutes. Then we last minutes while people evacuate. But we don't abandon them. It would be suicide. It would be human. The room went silent. Taiyang pulled up the communication channel to Earth's Defense Command. This is Taiyang Kim. I need to speak with Captain Soman immediately. Soman's face appeared on the screen. She was already in her flight suit. I heard. We're mobilizing what we can. It's not much. It's enough to buy time. I'm coming with you. You're not a pilot, Taiyang. No, but I'm an engineer. And I have an idea. He looked at Quan, the xenobiologist who had helped him prepare for the trials. Dr. Quan, your research on human neural patterns. You said humans have natural resistance to certain types of psychic interference, right? Quan blinked. Yes, but what is that? His eyes widened. Oh, no. That's insane. What is? Araya asked. Taeyang pulled up information on Skorath technology. The Skorath use psychic control fields to coordinate their fleet and disable enemy ships. That's why they're so effective. They take control of enemy vessels and turn them against each other. But human brains don't work the same way as most species. We're resistant to their control. You want to fly human pilots directly into their control fields, Soman said slowly. Fields that would fry most species' brains. Can it work? Quan ran calculations on his datapad. Theoretically, yes. Human neural patterns are too chaotic for Skorath systems to lock onto. You'd be immune to their primary weapon. But Taiyang, even if that works, you'd still be outnumbered 100 to 1. Then, we'd be smart about it. We don't fight their whole fleet. We hit their command ship. Cut off the head, the body dies. Admiral Quan studied the plan. It's the most reckless, desperate strategy I've ever heard. It violates every principle of military tactics. He smiled grimly. I love it. But Earth Command won't authorize this. Too risky. Then I'm not asking Earth Command. Taiyang looked at each person in the room. I'm asking for volunteers. Anyone willing to try something impossible. Soman grinned. Count me in. I've been looking for a good way to die anyway. That's not funny, Soman. Who's joking? Jiwoo stepped forward. I'm not a pilot, but I can shoot. I volunteer. Jiawoo, you don't have to. Shut up. You're my best friend, and you're about to do something incredibly stupid. I'm not letting you do it alone. One by one, human officers and crew members volunteered. Within an hour, they had 20 ships and 200 people willing to attempt the impossible. Araya grabbed Taiyang's arm. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. This is too dangerous. I can pilot Velthran fighters, and my telepathic abilities might help coordinate the attack. Her eyes were fierce. You just passed 3 trials to prove you're worthy of me. Now I prove I'm worthy of you. Araya, if you come on this mission, my mother will understand that I choose to stand with the man I love. Or she won't. Either way, I'm coming. Empress Nalith's hologram flickered. For a moment, she looked torn between pride and fury. Araya, as your mother, I forbid this. And as crown princes of the Velthran Empire, I respectfully decline your orders. This is treason. This is love. Araya's voice was steady. I will not sit in safety while Taiyang risks his life. I will not abandon people in need just because it's politically convenient. You taught me that duty means sacrifice. Well, this is my sacrifice. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then Empress Nalith did something unprecedented. She smiled. You sound like your father. Stubborn fool. She sighed. Very well. If you insist on this madness, you'll do it with proper support. Commander Boan mobilized Battle Group 7. Commander Boran appeared on another screen. Your Majesty? You're committing Velthran forces to defend human colonies? I'm supporting my daughter, and showing the galaxy that the Velthran Empire keeps its word. We accepted Earth into the coalition. That means we protect them. She looked at Taiyang. Besides, this human has earned our respect. Let us see if his plan is as brilliant as his trial victories. Within hours, an unlikely fleet assembled. 20 human ships, outdated and hastily armed. 50 Velthran warships, sleek and deadly. and hundreds of volunteers from a dozen species who decided that maybe, just maybe, the primitive humans had the right idea. Taiyang stood on the bridge of the human flagship, a converted cargo hauler named Determination. Beside him, Araya monitored Velthran systems. Soman piloted while Jiwoo manned weapons. It was the strangest command crew in Coalition history. Approaching New Darwin system, Soman announced. Skorath fleet detected. 200 vessels. They're already attacking the colony. On the view screen, New Darwin burned. Skorath ships surrounded the planet like vultures. The colony's shields were failing. This is Determination to all ships, Taiyang spoke into the comm. Execute Operation Crazy Human. All craft punch through their control field and target the command ship. Don't stop for anything. Sir, Jiwoo said nervously. This plan has a lot of holes in it. I know. But it's the only plan we've got. The fleet dove into the Skorath formation. Immediately, the psychic control fields hit them. Alien crew members screamed as the mental assault tried to overwhelm their minds. But the human pilots flew steady, their chaotic neural patterns deflecting the worst of it. Araya linked her telepathic abilities with the human pilots, helping them coordinate. Left wing, 3 degrees up. Skorath interceptors coming from your 6. Velthran ships provided covering fire, their advanced weapons tearing through Skorath vessels. But there were too many. For every Scar ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. On New Darwin, Mingyu organized the evacuation. Come on, people, move. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the shields fail completely. In space, Taiyang studied the Skorath formation. There, the command ship sat at the center, larger than the others, coordinating the attack. But getting to it meant flying through a wall of enemy fire. Soman, I need you to thread us through that gap. 20 degrees starboard, then dive. That gap is 50 meters wide, and we're a 100-meter ship, so make us fit. Soman laughed, because what else could you do when your friend asked the impossible? Hold on to something. The Determination spun sideways, its engine screaming. They slipped through the gap with centimeters to spare. Skorath fire filled the space behind them, but they were through. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Jiwoo called out. The command ship saw them coming. It launched everything it had. But Araya was already coordinating the Velthran fleet. All ships concentrated fire on their launch bays. Now, Velthran weapons struck with surgical precision. The Skorath's defensive fire died as their weapons were destroyed. Firing, Jiwoo said calmly. Human missiles, primitive but effective, slammed into the calm. The Velthran homeworld was beautiful in a way that Earth could never match. Crystal spires stretched into purple skies. Gardens floated on platforms of pure energy. Everything shimmered with a light that seemed to come from within the world itself. Taiyang stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city, trying not to be overwhelmed. In 3 months, his life had gone from fixing air conditioners to preparing for a royal wedding that would be broadcast across 1,000 worlds. You look nervous, Araya said, appearing beside him. She wore a simple dress, enjoying one of the last moments before royal obligations consumed them both. I'm terrified. There are going to be representatives from 500 species at this wedding. What if I mess up the ceremony? What if I accidentally insult someone's cultural traditions? Then we apologize and move on. Taiyang, you fought a war construct, solved an ancient puzzle, and led a fleet against the Skorath. You can handle a wedding. The war construct didn't judge me for using the wrong fork. She laughed, leaning against him. There are no forks in the ceremony. See? Already easier. A transport ship landed on the palace platform. Taiyang's family had arrived. His mother Heron stepped out, looking around with wide eyes. His brother Mingyu followed, still in his pilot's uniform. Mom. Taiyang rushed to greet her. Heron hugged him tightly, then held him at arm's length. "Let me look at you. My son marrying a princess. Your father would have been so proud." Her eyes were wet with tears. "I wish he could be here." "He is. In here." She tapped his chest. "Now, where is this princess who stole your heart?" Araya approached, and for the first time since Taiyang had met her, she looked uncertain. "Mrs. Kim, it's an honor to meet you." Heron studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled warmly. "Call me Heron, dear. We're going to be family." She took Araya's hands. "Thank you for seeing who my son truly is. Not everyone would. He makes it easy. He's the most genuine person I've ever met." Mingyu clapped Taiyang on the shoulder. "So this is what happens when you mutter about wanting to marry someone. Note to self. Be careful what I say out loud. Shut up, Mingyu." The next few days were chaos. Wedding preparations on a galactic scale meant coordinating traditions from dozens of species. The ceremony would blend human and Velthran customs, creating something entirely new. Elder Cirrus, who would officiate, met with Taiyang privately. The ancient Velthran looked like he had been carved from moonlight, his crystalline features weathered by millions of years. "You are about to make history, young human. The first union between our species. Do you understand what this means? That I'm going to mess up in front of billions of people?" Elder Cirrus's laugh was like wind chimes. "That you are building a bridge. For millennia, the galaxy has been divided. Old species versus young. Advanced versus primitive. Your marriage challenges those divisions. It says that worth is not measured in years or technology. I'm just one guy marrying the woman I love. Yes, and sometimes that is how the galaxy changes. One person, one choice, one moment of courage." On Earth, the world watched their preparations. Humans felt pride like they had never known. One of their own, a regular engineer, was about to marry into one of the oldest royal families in the galaxy. Ambassador Yeji gave interviews to hundreds of news organizations. "This represents a new chapter for humanity. We are no longer outsiders looking in. We are part of the galactic community, and this wedding proves it." But not everyone was happy. Lord Dexian, still bitter about being passed over, made one final attempt. He appeared at the pre-wedding reception, demanding to speak with the Empress. "This union is an insult to tradition," he declared loudly. "Humans are primitives. They have no place in royal bloodlines." Empress Nalith regarded him coolly. "And yet this primitive defeated challenges that have destroyed noble warriors for centuries. What does that say about our traditions, Lord Dexian?" "It says he cheated. He used unconventional methods. He used intelligence and creativity. Perhaps that is what our traditions need. New perspectives. Fresh ideas." She gestured to her guards. "Escort Lord Dexian out. He is no longer welcome at this celebration." As Dexian was removed, still protesting, Empress Nelith approached Taiyang. "Walk with me." They strolled through the palace gardens, crystalline flowers chiming softly in the breeze. "I owe you an apology," the Empress said. "When my daughter first announced her engagement, I saw only what I expected to see, a primitive grasping above his station. I was wrong. Your Majesty, you don't need to. I do. You have shown me that humanity possesses qualities we Velthran have lost: adaptability, genuine emotion, the courage to try the impossible." She stopped, turning to face him. "You saved those colonies not because it was profitable or politically wise. You did it because it was right. That is nobility, Taiyang Kim. True nobility. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what a human would do. And that made all the difference." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Take care of my daughter, and help her teach us old species how to be young again." The wedding day arrived. The ceremony was held in the Crystal Hall, a massive chamber that could hold tens of thousands. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the seats. Humans, Velthrin, and hundreds of other species, all gathered to witness something unprecedented. Taiyang stood at the altar, wearing a blend of human formal wear and Velthrin ceremonial robes. Jiwoo stood beside him as best man, looking uncomfortable but proud. "You ready for this?" Jiwoo whispered, "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Music began, a harmony of earth instruments and Velthrin crystals. Araya walked down the aisle, and Taiyang forgot to breathe. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of starlight itself, flowing around her like liquid silver. Her hair was woven with crystal flowers. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. But what made his heart skip was her smile. Not the formal princess smile. The real one. The one she only gave him. Elder Sirius raised his hands, and silence fell. "We gather today to witness a union that transcends species, culture, and tradition. Taiyang, Kim of Earth, and Princess Araya of the Velthrin Empire choose to bind their lives together. This has never happened before. It will never happen the same way again. We are witnessing the birth of something new." The ceremony blended traditions beautifully. Taiyang recited his vows first, in both Korean and the Velthrin language. "I didn't plan to fall in love with you. I didn't expect you to hear my wish. But you did, and you chose me when you could have chosen anyone. You saw worth in me when I saw only an ordinary engineer. I promise to see you, truly see you, every day. Not the princess. Not the symbol. Just Araya, the woman who makes me laugh. The woman who challenges me. The woman I choose, every single day." Araya's voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered. "My people measure relationships in centuries. We think that because we have lived long, we understand everything. But you taught me that understanding comes not from years, but from genuine connection. In 3 months, you showed me more authentic love than I experienced in centuries of formal courtship. You didn't try to change me or fix me. You simply accepted me. I choose the human who saw me as a person, not a prize. I choose you, Taiyang Kim, today and always." Elder Sirius produced 2 crystalline bands. These rings represent the bond you forged today. Velthrin tradition and human custom merged into something new. They exchanged rings, their hands trembling slightly. Then came the final element, the telepathic bonding unique to Velthrin marriage. Araya placed her hand against Taiyang's temple. "This will feel strange," she whispered. Her memories flowed into him. Not all of them, but enough. He felt her loneliness across the centuries, her joy at meeting him, her fear during the trials, her love pure and overwhelming. And in return, she felt his memories, his childhood on Earth, his pride in his work. The moment he first realized he loved her, his absolute certainty that she was worth fighting for. When they separated, they were linked. Not completely merged, but connected in a way that would last their lifetime. By the power invested in me by the Velthrin Empire and recognized by the Galactic Coalition, I declare you bonded in marriage. You may seal your vows." Taiyang kissed his wife as the hall erupted in applause. Humans cheered. Velthrin chimed their approval. Even species that had opposed the marriage couldn't help but be moved by the genuine emotion on display. The reception was chaos in the best way. Human food and Velthrin delicacies sat side by side. Earth music played alongside Velthrin harmonies. Cultures mixed and blended, finding common ground in celebration. Heron danced with Commander Boren, who was surprisingly graceful despite his massive size. Ming Yu challenged Velthrin pilots to drinking contests and immediately regretted it when he learned Velthrin alcohol was much stronger. Jiwoo found Taiyang alone for a moment. "Remember when you were just a guy who fixed air conditioners? That was 4 months ago. Feels like another lifetime." Jiwoo grinned. You're going to change the galaxy, you know that? I'm just one person. So is every person who ever changed anything. That's how it works. Later, Taiyang and Araya stood together on the palace balcony, watching Earth rise above the horizon. It looked small and blue and perfect. I'm going to miss it, Taiyang said. I know we'll visit, but it won't be home anymore. Home isn't a place.